Okay. Okay. So this is the PDF of the Saving Your Future book. And this is the, from the newest version. So I'm going to go the PDF. I can email it to you. All right. So who's been paying attention to this banking crisis situation? Who knows anything about it? So I was preparing this presentation yesterday. And so the FDIC has a limit on what they'll insure in your bank accounts. You guys know what that is, what that limit is? Go ahead. $250,000, right? That's not per account. That's per individual in any bank. Okay, so I'm looking through the news, and let's see if I got that. I'll pull this up here. Let's see here. Let's see here. So I'm looking through the news, and Charles Schwab. You know who Charles Schwab is? Yep, has the largest discount brokerage in the country. He has a $3.5 billion that's in Silicon Valley Bank, and only $250,000 of that is insured by the FDIC. And I'm like, what? $3.5 billion. Huh? I don't know if it's from his money or from Charles, the brokerage, but he's got in one bank. Why would you think that somebody would have, if there's, knowing that the maximum insured amount for one bank is $250,000? Why do you think somebody would have any more than that in a bank? Well, it's because he doesn't know. He doesn't know. So this is this introduction here This was the post-COVID numbers. Okay, so this is according to surveys, North Americans are facing serious financial. This is government agencies um, and that and institutions are putting this together. So this is post-COVID. This is U.S. and Canada. 35% of Canadians don't have any savings and investments. 27% of the private sector workers, only 27% have an employee-funded pension plan. The average savings in their registered retirement savings plan, which is their equivalent to our 401k, is about $55,000. That's the average. The U.S. picture is even gloomier than that. 33%, more than 77 million Americans don't pay their bills on time. 39% carry credit card debt month to month. Only 59% of adults say they have any savings. Worse, more than half now think it's acceptable to default on their mortgage if they can't afford to pay it. Okay, so if they were to update this, these statistics, what do you think they'd be talking about? What do you think would be, if you were to, this current situation, or since COVID, what has happened in our financial markets? What's happened? Just throw some things out there that come to mind. What? Oh, good. What about inflation? What caused inflation? No. What is inflation? Let's show it. We show inflation is here. So this is a really handy tool. This book is the where's my phone? That's not my phone. It's not here. It's not, yeah. Okay, so here we go. Inflation, the silent killer. Inflation is the rise in prices of goods and services over time. When prices increase, your purchasing power decreases. For example, if inflation rate is 3.5%, your $100 today will only be worth $96.50 next year. Inflation happens when countries and when a country prints more money than it earns. So that's what you were trying to say. Yeah. The result is everybody will lose some value in their money. Some refer to inflation as hidden tax. Inflation is a major factor to consider when you build your financial future. For instance, if you put your money in an account with a zero rate of return, its value will certainly decline in the long run. In the last 100 years, from 1914 to 2014, the U.S. inflation rate averaged 3.32%. Let's take a look at the prices of some basic items over time. This really got my attention. So you look at in the 70s, a new home average price in the 70s was $23,450 for a new home. In the 90s, they went up to 123,000. 2013, the average price per home is 289,500. A new car in the 70s was $3,400. My best friend, he started working in his dad's grocery store when he was 7 years old. It was a family grocery store passed down from his grandfather. And he saved his money. And at 16 years old, he bought a brand new Chevy Nova SS. Can you guess how much he paid for it? In 1979. $6,000. Okay. The equivalent car today would be about $40,000. Yeah. Okay, that's inflation. Okay. All right. So you talk about what's going on right now with inflation? What's happening right now because of inflation? It's all over the news. And you're throwing things out there. You're put it together. Put that thought together. Anybody want to help him? Well, you're putting things together pretty good. What's happening? Who's the guy right now that's, when you think of inflation, you think of this guy? The Federal Reserve Chairman, right? So what is he doing? No, he's not printing more money. Okay, you're say okay. All this is okay. The debt ceiling. We talked about that a couple of weeks ago. Okay, how is that related to inflation? Okay, so this is the guy, Jerome Powell, and he has been he's been raising interest rates to slow down inflation. Okay. Roney just named off the one thing that would that reduce inflation, and that's increasing our production of oil. Like that would reduce inflation. What's another reason we have inflation right now? Yep, supply and demand. Sure enough. Okay. The now yesterday. Okay, so how's that tie into what's going on with the banking fault closing now? The banks getting shut down. That was very well explained. You did an excellent job. You've been paying attention. So basically what happened was when the rates were so low, mortgage interest rate was so low. Okay, this is the story that they're putting out. Okay, they had all these really low interest loans, 3% mortgage debt. Okay, that they were servicing. That means they didn't sell that debt. They didn't sell it onto the secondary market. Okay, there's Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac are secondary markets for mortgages, and they buy debt. They buy that debt from the bank, so now the bank get their money back and stay in business. Okay, and they so the bank can stay in business. Well, the government set it up that way. Well, there's a secondary market for auto loans also. Okay. And so what that did was it allowed before there was a secondary market, people would want to buy land, they'd have to put at least 50% down. And the notes were like short-term notes, could be like 3 years. They got to pay that property off. So at that time, who could do that? Only the rich people. A debt instrument. It's a debt instrument. It's a promise to pay. Okay, so you borrowed money and you got an agreement to pay that money back over a certain period of time at a certain interest rate. That's a note, right? Okay. And the government back after World War II, the government's like, okay, we want more people to own land. Okay, when people have more own land, they become better citizens. Okay, so they went to the banks. They said, we want you to offer up to 80% loan to value. Okay, we want to have the amortization on these loans, the time that people can pay it off up to 30 years. Okay. And they need to have at least a 660 FICO score, credit score. And they need to have 3 months PITI, principal, interest, taxes, insurance, and reserve. And they need to have 2 years in the same field with no gaps in employment. you could have 4 different jobs, but we're working the same field, right, with no gaps in between. You could have that, as long as your income stayed stable. And these people, and the banks are like, and why would we do that? And they said, well, if you meet these guidelines, we'll buy that paper from you so you can get your money back quicker. The government offered that to them. Yeah, that the government was doing it at first, right? Then the government set up agencies, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. Okay, Fannie Mae for conforming, Freddie Mac for jumbo loans. They set up these agencies to do that, to do that for them. Okay, and that became the secondary market for mortgages. But there's a secondary market for all kinds of stuff. So in this story with Silicon Valley Bank, these are primarily business loans. And they didn't meet the guidelines for the secondary market. They were looser guidelines. So there was no secondary market to buy that debt. So they were servicing that debt. That's right. So now they hamstrung themselves because they were only getting paid back a little bit per month, you know, the interest and the principal back per month whenever those businesses made the payments back to the bank. Okay. And and so they didn't have, it took longer for them to get their money back. This is what the story is. Okay. So I'm doing this PowerPoint. I started putting PowerPoint together, explaining all this. And I'm thinking, why? Where could people put their money? I read about Charles Schwab. What, and he probably did it. He probably had all that money there because he needed it liquid. He needed to get at it quick. There was probably, you know, somehow, for some reason, there was a requirement, a rapid turnaround for $3.5 billion that he needed to have access to quickly. That's why you would have money in a bank. Okay, but probably the fastest way to get your money is having it in a bank. Okay, if you had a mutual fund, which he was controlled the largest discount broker that sold what? Mostly mutual funds, right? Why would he have all that money in a bank? Okay, you know, and so I'm thinking, where else could he have all that kind of money and have quick access to it, right? And it hit me, cryptocurrency. Okay, especially XRP, because XRP is designed to actually, in 30 minutes, you can transfer money across a border, across an international border with XRP, compared to, let's say, Bitcoin, which takes 8 hours, right? So I called my expert on XRP, which is a guy I used to live with, and the same guy used to be the cameraman for the Renegade TV series that Bradley Rowe was producer. And I called him up. Huh? Right, right. And so I called him up because he's sitting there waiting. I'm looking at that, like, let's look at this right now. XRP price today is it's up today. It's up 2 1/100ths of a point from yesterday. Okay. It was down yesterday. Okay, I'm like, why is it down? So he explained to me that all these banks that are getting shut down, the real reason they're getting shut down is because their banks that would lend money against cryptocurrency? Why would anybody want to borrow money against cryptocurrency? Anybody know? Well, it's again the cryptocurrency. You're right or you're close. How much tax do you pay on loan proceeds? Zero tax. Well, that's what they're waiting on the ruling. Okay, they're waiting for this. They're waiting for this lawsuit to settle, and it hasn't settled yet. Okay, that's once that lawsuit settles, if it looks like it's going to be in the favor of XRP or Ripple, then that price is going to go through the roof. Okay, and so people are waiting. They're just every day they're looking at they're looking at the news, what's going on with that lawsuit, right? But right now it's not. Right now it's considered a security. Okay, so if it's a short-term gain, which means less than 1 year, you got to pay. If you're in the highest tax bracket, so you're making $550,000 a year, you got to pay 39.6% tax on the gain on your money. And so all these people that are holding cryptocurrencies, large amounts, they do not want to pay 39.6% to the government, right? So they are borrowing money again. So they're borrowing money against their cryptocurrency. Okay. Now, that's what's called a derivative. Okay, when you hear the term derivative, it's a mathematical term. It basically describes a way of doing something that's atypical. It's not a standard way of figuring something out. Okay. You guys think of a math problem that there's an odd way of figuring something out. There's a mathematical formula This is the mathematical formula for calculating compound interest. Okay, so it's A equals P times 1 plus R over N. Okay, all right. But you know another way of doing it? The rule of 72. Whatever interest rate you're earning on your money, divided into 72 determines how fast your money doubles. Okay, so the rule of 72 is here in the book, right? Right here. So if you get a 4% rate of return on your money, 4 goes in 72 18 times. So every 18 years, your money's going to double. If you got an 8% rate of return, 8 goes in 72 9 times. So your money's going to double every 9 years. That would be considered a derivative. Another way of doing something. But they now they use it for financial stuff, right? So by borrowing money against an asset is a derivative. In 2008, there were more derivatives out there, then there was money to pay them off. And do you know what those were? Those were called puts. Puts are bets against the market. Okay, so who would like, if you're gonna bet money, right? You gotta have somebody to enter the bet with you, right? Okay, so there's got to be people going, oh yeah, I'll take that bet, right? Who's doing that, right? Who is doing that? How? Well, here's how they do it. They put a buy order in for the market. Let's say the market's 15,000 for the Dow, let's say, right? What's the Dow right now? Dow is an index. Dow is an index for these are the Dow Jones, the Dow Jones Industrial Average, right? So now it's 31,000. I remember when the Dow hit 17,000 in 2007. That was the highest it had ever been in 2007. Now it's 31. It's down today. It's down a lot. So the Dow Jones Industrial Average, so the Dow Jones is an index of the top rated companies by this, like the S&P, Standard & Poor's. It's a periodical. It's a magazine that goes out, and they pick the top 500 companies. Okay, and of their, it's that makes up, based on what they rate the top companies are in the stock market, that represents the S&P, the Standard & Poor's 500. Okay, so the Dow Jones is the Standard & Poor's. It's a magazine. Standard and A-N-D Poor's. Standard & Poor's. S&P. Just abbreviation. So it's a magazine. It's an investment periodical, and they rate the top 500 companies. Okay, they're not holding those companies. They just look which ones are doing the best today, right? Okay, then the Dow Jones. Dow Jones is usually companies that have been around a lot longer. That's the average price per share of the companies in the S&P 500, or in the Dow Jones, right? Okay, so yeah, in 2007, right. Okay, so this is right. So this is an index of the top companies rated by the Dow Jones Industrial Average. Okay. Mm-hmm. Right. So the Dow Jones, it's got all this stuff in it. Okay. Right. So that's an index. When in 2017, it was 17,000. It broke 17,000 in 2007, and that was the record. Now look at it done today. Okay. So that your money in the market is going to go up over time. Okay. Now, what is happening is there's a lot of money out there. And the people that hold this money could be countries like China and Saudi Arabia, right? Or big companies, okay, like Dow. Dow's a huge company. Okay, what do they make? Chemicals, right? Okay, and so they want places to put their money that not only do they not lose money, they don't, but their money grows, right? So they're looking at, you know, different places they can put their money. They make markets, okay? The now what is happening in the Sam Bankman-Fried crypto guy, right? The FTX crypto platform. What made that a problem? Why was that a problem? What happened there? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Did he just borrow like one time? Right, right. So he had one of my, let's say he had $1 billion, right? He had like almost $4 billion he had $6 billion in crypto assets that he was held on his platform. And he borrowed money against that money that wasn't his. That crypto wasn't his, not just one time, like multiple times, like over 6 times. So these creditors that gave him money on assets that weren't really his, collateralized, weren't really his, they got taken to the cleaners. They got screwed over because you can only pay out. So if you had a house and you've got a first mortgage up to 80% loan to value, and then you come behind it with a second mortgage, all right, up to 100%. Now you got 100% of that house, right? But let's say you found some idiot to give you a loan in third position secured against that same house, and now you can't pay your mortgage. Now the mortgage company, the first mortgage holder or the second mortgage, it doesn't matter which one, they both can put a lien on your property, right? And if you don't pay a certain amount of time, guess what they do? They foreclose and then they sell the property, okay? And if that property value goes down, okay, so there's not enough to pay off what was borrowed against the property when it was worth more than what it sold at, whoever came in first position has the most likely chance of getting paid back what they owe. The second mortgage holder probably isn't going to get everything that they were owed, and the one in third position is SOL. They're not going to get what they, okay, so this guy did that with cryptocurrencies. It wasn't his. Okay, so what they're saying, what's going on with these banks, like there's a bunch of them now. There's banks that are shutting down this week. Okay, banks shutting down this week. Okay. This one here was Silicon Valley Bank. That was the first one, right? Signature Bank was another one. Okay. Okay, so I'm calling my friend up because I know I know about this cryptocurrency, right? That's Silicon Valley Bank and Signature Bank. I know about XRP. Why wouldn't somebody use XRP instead of putting all their money in a bank? They need quick access to it, right? Well, you know what he told me? It isn't what you think it is. These banks that they're shutting down, well, they are the banks that are lending money against crypto. Not XRP, FTX. Right, right. That's, well, they're trying to shut down these banks that lend money against crypto, because why? Because the government wants wants those taxes. They want that tax money. Okay. And so if they can't borrow against it, they got to take that money out. And if they got to take that money out, guess what? The government's going to get their taxes. Okay. And because the government's spending so much money, okay. So now, right. Okay. And now they're talking about the government going to crypto. Right. Why is that? Well, they can track and they can see where you're sending your money. Mm-hmm. Right. And so that's so just recently, Biden signed into law. I just heard about this yesterday. Okay, so this is what's really happening. They're putting the pinch on those banks that are friendly to lending against crypto. Okay, and they're saying, you know, this raise in interest rates is another way of curtailing that. Okay, so raising the interest rates makes it not as advantageous to borrow even against your crypto, right? And so they're making it harder to do these types of businesses. Okay, so this is what I learned yesterday. Just was like, why wouldn't somebody use cryptocurrency? You know, if you need your money quick, right? Well, if you use cryptocurrency and you need your money quick, if it had any gain at all, you're going to pay tax on that money right away. You're going to pay more taxes. So that's what's really going on there. Okay, so let's say they totally do away with let's say they totally do away with the dollar and they go to another form of currency. Okay. Do you think any of these strategies, you know, talking about, you know, the understanding, you know, this is the wealth formula, your money plus time, plus or minus your rate of return, minus inflation and taxes equals your wealth. Do you think this won't apply if we switch to another currency? Or do you think it will still apply?
Super rich when you have from the deal, it's like $50 million, but it's like about 25.
Okay, so this is showing compound interest, right? So this $300 a month at 8% interest for 30 years is $447,107. If you increase that $600 a month at 8% for 30 years, it's $894,214. Do you think that dynamic, the more money you put in a month, would change if we change our currency? You think that would change? You think that would, it would not be the same effect? Do you think it would be different? Well, just how it grows. Do you think it would change? More money you put in, more money you get out, you think? Probably not, right? Okay, time, time, time is your greatest asset. Okay, I can say that if I sit down with somebody who's like, under 30, I can always show them how by the time they're old enough to retire, they'll have $1 million. By the time they're 60, they'll have $1 million in their account. Okay, and how to do it, and then make it show them that it's reasonable. Okay, the cost of waiting. Do you think that would change? Do you think if somebody waited, would have more money if they started earlier, and less money if they waited longer? Do you think that would change if we changed our currency? Probably stay the same, right? Okay. The law of compound interest. If they're going to earn interest on whatever the asset is, if you think the way the interest is calculated would change, probably not. Okay. Hey, you're snoring. All right. So here's what hit me yesterday. Okay. When Ronnie's talking about this is showing all the factors that put weight down your money, right? This guy's got $100 at 3% interest, paying 25% tax. All right. After tax, he's got 102,000 net after tax, $102.25. But when you count inflation at 3.5%, now he's gone backwards. At 90, he has less money than what he put in. Example number two, $100 making 5%, 25% tax. After taxes, $103.75. After inflation at 3.5%, he beat inflation by a quarter. Okay, think that's going to change if we change our currency? Probably not. Okay, we talked about inflation already, right? That's probably going to stay the same. Taxes, do you think they're going to tax us less or more? They're going to tax us more, right? The Benjamin Franklin said, "There's nothing certain in the world except death and taxes." Okay, this shows. Not at first. Not at first. He became later, right? So this shows taxes, right? How much? So would I say the top tax is right now? Short-term capital gains is what? Yeah, 39.6 is what it is right now. It's still that. Okay, for short-term capital gains, 39.6. Look at this. In 1944, the Individual Income Tax Act was 94% of your money. 94%. You think taxes are going to go up or down? Doesn't matter what your currency is, right? Well, they change it to you. Taxes are probably going to go up. Okay. So here's my point. Okay. here's my point. These are different categories and how your money's held. There's tax now, that's checking, savings, bank CDs, individual stocks, mutual funds. Tax later, qualified plans. You qualify for a tax deduction on your contribution. That happens in a 401k, a 413, a 403b, an IRA, a SEP IRA, an annuity, a pension, long-term care benefit, and something called a defined benefit plan. That's the biggest one, $250,000 a year. Okay, you can deduct. Tax advantage, that's going to be a Roth IRA, a 529 college savings plan, a municipal bond, health savings account, and life insurance. Do you think that'll change if we change our currency? If it's all going to be taxed the same, they may give you a tax break if you choose to use the government's form of digital currency, where they can track your spending. Okay. Right. Okay. Okay. So all these things that are in here, do you think there's going to be anything that's become obsolete? If they change, if we go away from the dollar, we choose another form of currency. Okay, the point is this. Okay. You think that the fraud that happened with Sam Bankman-Fried, or the situations with the banks, having not enough in reserves, you think any of that will change if they change the currency? No. Okay, so what would happen is the same kind of trying to skirt around the trying to find an angle, trying to find a cheating way of doing something. Do you think that will stop? No. So it all goes back to what Roni was talking about yesterday, right? And it's getting it right in your heart. Okay, if we go to our carnal nature, doesn't matter what system they put out there, it's going to get corrupted. Okay. So why did they do? When you looked at Hammurabi and his creation of the shekel, the rules around money, okay, and then you look at the law of Moses, you're like, oh wow, this was like having a term paper due, and you found something that was already published, and you just changed and you just put in your figures, right, and turn it in. Okay, but what happened with this is, do you think there was more value in the money, in the shekel, or in the animals that were alive that the Jews had to sacrifice? I used to raise 4-H livestock. I would have a hog, I'd have 2 hogs and a steer. And I would walk that steer 4 miles a day. I had to feed him every day. I had to groom him. I had to, all this stuff. I got to know this animal pretty well. So, good question. Really good question. say 4-H is a US-based network of youth organizations whose mission is engaging youth to reach their fullest potential while advancing the field of youth development. Its name is reference to the occurrence of the initial letter H 4 times in the organization's original motto: head, heart, hands, and health. There you go. Right. So I used to raise 4-H livestock, and I'm taking care of this animal, and then I would go and put a portfolio together, pictures of when I was breaking the animal, making it so it would walk next to me. We would tow it, we would pull it behind a truck, and I'd stand next to it, right, until it stopped resisting. And then the next day, it wouldn't resist at all. And then the next day, we just had one little rope tied. And the next day, none, we just walk behind the truck. And the next day, I'm walking it without the truck in front of me. And the next day, I'm walking it every day 4 miles, right? Okay. I had to groom that animal. I had to feed him every day. I had to pay for the feed, everything. And then I took pictures and documented everything. And I took it to businesses and asked them to come to the fair and bid on my steer. Okay. So the first year, there's 72 animals. And I was like, mine did the worst because I overfinished. He got too fat, right? But I still made $1,400 on that animal. Okay, when they auctioned off. The next year, I came in 11th, and I made $2,800 on that steer, right? But I saw the girl that had grand champion, and she made $14,000 when they auctioned, and she was crying her eyes out because she developed a relationship with that animal. Okay, so the point I'm making is the value of that money versus the value of those animals that those people had to raise. The animal had more impact. There was more emotional impact on raising those animals to sacrifice than there was the money. Go on.
When you brought it back to it now, but the worst thing is too much of the carry. That I don't think you put so much in the booty, but it has to be the better that it's offer anything to our trees. So they're highly valuable. So you don't have to work to raising that animal. Do the same thing with the household. The land has to be the very best. They have to live with you for 14 days. So you have to. And that was part of the point. Abraham, all of his life, 75 years old, another 25 years with his kid is supernaturally birth, another 30 years of growing up the relationship with each of all of them that he learned, then God said, I want you to take the sacrifice. So it's oh my goodness, it's being detached from what we consider valuable. So with that, now the work that is too much to carry, you put it in the form of money, and I'm going to take it for something else. So it's about changing, transitioning, not being attached and connected, being connected. And don't forget the Levite. If you take care of them, because that's the needs of the one that chose to come back to you. If you want to come back to follow that Levite, because that Levite is going to go through this process, because it's not me. So here's not financial vehicle process. All the stuff you have to do to become a 4-H. So that's my head, heart, and health. That's pretty, that's the significance of the meaning of that. Combine, where your heart is, the work of your hands, and all that has a spiritual equivalent, so you can be spiritually healthy, you can come back to it and get it. So I can see why that young lady was crying because of all the inputs from that spiritual way. And now it's going to be gone and sacrificed for everybody else.
Yeah, the steer, the one that I did the best with. Okay, I was beaten by my stepdad and taken away and put in a foster home for a month, just a month. And my mother had to relocate. She moved about a mile and a half down the road in a mobile home. And when my stepdad was in the National Guard, when he was gone for the weekend, he told my mom that I could go and get my steer, who had been tied up in the shed for the month with a rope halter on it that grew into his nose because my stepdad didn't take care of him. He may have fed him. He fed him, I guess, while I was gone, but he didn't. He grew in his nose. I had to walk him up a mile and a half up the road, and in a little shed that I had to raise him in that whole summer, or that whole rest of the year, till the end of the summer, till the fair, and all the things that I had to do. When I came home from the foster home, I went right to my grandmother's funeral, and then the next day went to school, came home, and there was no food in the house because my mom lost her job and all that turmoil. And I called my best friend up and got a job in his grocery store. So when I got paid, I bought groceries for the family, right? And I bought, whatever was on sale, and whatever was generic, to keep the cost down so I get the most for my money, right? And then I learned I've watched these ladies buy groceries. Women buy groceries different. They pay attention. They like, this may be on sale, but if I buy this bigger container per serving, they'll do the math in their head that if it works out to be a more cost effective to buy the bigger container, guess what they buy? They buy the bigger container instead of what's on sale, because it actually works out to be more cost effective per serving to buy the bigger container. And I'm like, wow. So that's how women shop. That's how I shop now, right? Paying attention to what I'm buying. Okay. And so what I'm trying to get across, these things I've been trying to teach with, all these, these financial principles and things like that, it's important. Okay. These principles, paying attention to it and understanding it is extremely valuable for a couple of reasons. One is, who's in control? Who's in control? Like the Davos guys, right? Who are these people? Right. Right. Do you think God wants them in charge? No. But why are they in charge? That's right. That's right. Okay. And if we don't understand it, that puts them over us. Okay. Understanding, now, when we not only understand the law, okay, but we understand the spiritual side of the law, right? The real interpretation of what the Bible says, okay, God's law, okay, when we really understand and learn how to use that, okay, that gives us the upper hand, okay, but there's nothing that they can do to change the principles of how it all works, how the money works. Doesn't matter what the money was, doesn't matter if it's the dollar, the peso, Bitcoin, XRP, doesn't matter what it is. The same strategies and principles apply. Yes.
So with that, I think that house, right? Has to cost. So in order to do it, right, value, love, but it's not right. That now is that, and something that is that asset to the government is in the test. Why is it? What is the motivation for following? Like it to be, you know, a girl, we had all of that, blah, blah, blah. Versus guys saying, hey, I want you to come from the principle that runs the universe. So that's the principle. It works as first and natural, then it's spiritual. You know, it's how the natural works. But if you take with a little, that can make you do much. The muscles have a little fine body that can do that. But what makes it so is not smart.
Okay. You just opened up a whole nother door here. Okay. I came, Bradley said, I want you to do, he offered me my dream job. I get to work out with these veterans every day. I get to help them do what I did for myself when it came to nutrition, all right, diet, nutrition, and help them with their finances. I'm like, this is my dream job. That was a year ago that I came to this house, a year ago, and it didn't happen. Okay. And I'm like, I gotta make, now all of a sudden I wasn't paying rent. Now I gotta pay rent. I'm like, oh, when I get in disability income, that isn't enough to cover all that. I can pay my car payment, I can pay my insurance, I can buy some food, right? And gas, but it wasn't enough to cover all this. So I had to go make money. Right? And there just happened to be the office down the road, right? Now, do I make a bunch of money sitting in the office? No. Do I make enough money? Do I make any money off of you guys? Teaching this, I don't make nothing, right? Right? So I'm like, okay, I got to figure out what I got to do to make money. Who do I got to talk to make money? Right? Now, I've done this before, right? I got to talk to enough people, find somebody who will talk to me, right? I got to talk to them in a way that they want to like pay attention to me. And how do I do that? I have to listen to them and figure out what's important to them and talk to them about what's important to them. I have to pay attention. Right. And so what's happening right now, they kept talking about this great wealth transfer. They've been talking about this for like 13 years. When I first came on with this company, right? Now, everybody that I'm talking to now, they inherited an estate. They have more money now than they ever had any idea they ever had before in their life, and they need help where to put it. But because I've been holding myself out there, all right, as a financial literacy trainer or somebody who's in this industry, I got a guy I went through SEAL training over 30 years ago, Elmore Naka, right? He saw me put out an email about the wealth and health community, Transamerica's wealth and health community. He's looking through this documentation from his grandmother. Huh? Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So he's listening. So he's looking through the documents. He's got a 800,000 in a CD, and he's got 300,000 in a CD, and then he's got like 1.3 million in a Transamerica annuity. And he reads my email and reaches out to me. And so now I'm going to be, I'm getting him financially educated, right? And to help him, figure out what to do with these assets, right? But that was like just because I held myself out there. Okay. I got another guy that or this lady, it was her birthday and it showed up on, in the announcements, or what they call it, notifications in LinkedIn, right? And I look at her email, it says wealthandbeauty@gmail.com, right? I'm like, oh, I need to talk to her. Come to find out, I knew her uncle, or I knew her father. Her father was a chemical formulator, and he branded and mixed chemicals for hair and facial and skin products for all the cosmetologists in Southern California. Now she inherited his business, right? And she has a heart for these salon owners. You know, they don't get a pension. They don't have a 401k. They don't save their money. They'll stand behind a chair cutting hair the rest of their life. And there's a lot of them that do. You know, that's it's a quick way to make money, right? And they'll end up doing it in their kitchen until they die, right? But they don't save their money until the point where their money is growing enough where they have an income stream. They can draw money from their money enough to live on. Okay, they don't start saving their money, and so she's like came up with this idea of a kiosk, like a cart with skin and hair products in it that they could sell at the salons, right? Make extra money, and then refer to me, right? So these, I had to get out there. I have to get out there in Houston or in the world, right? And people had to know what I do. And I had to talk about things that I do enough for people like, oh, like when I ask you, what's the limit? What's the max contribution for a Roth IRA? You know? 6,000 a year until you're 55. Then it goes to 55, 50. Then it goes to $7,000 a year to catch up. Do you know what the limit is on we just talked about it. What's the limit on the FDIC insurance? $250,000 a year, right? So if you got more than $250,000 a year, you're going to put it in one bank? You shouldn't, right? You should spread it out in different banks, or you should find something else that you can put more money in, right? That's going to be, you know, it's not going to guarantee you from market volatility. You can't protect it from that. But it,
What I've seen is like this forum that are guaranteed. But the other thing, depending upon plan, how anchored it is, whether it's or treat and whether it's a palm tree or a bird, let that is. You suspend this one out against that house. The house is a rock, principle, eternal. And that house is on sand. So that wisdom will transfer this way. So a palm tree is a rock, it depends on how long we live, but at the end of it, it's up because these are anchored. So that's what I'm saying is that when this one comes, it's the people. For those who are preparing for the assets and the raises, as opposed to the principal numbers of assets. We thought about asset on the other side. Chickens, they want to get eggs.
yeah, my dad used to say that. Yeah.
Right? So as it's growing, like our father was a creator, start to see where am I wired to be? Where the kingdom rise this side? Exactly, Dr. Bashar, that this guy finally he's a Muslim. When you talk to him, one has a bias, okay, those people as opposed to a person of creativity and soul and all, how is the impact of the world? Look at our creator. So he's not saying this or that, he says our creator. There's not one tree in the backyard that has it. There's one piece of grass, it's always got grass. It reflects the principle of the moment. So that is part of how we're wired, because that's the nature of Genesis. So residential understanding. More, that you have lots. So if you know what, what's the thought, somebody learned from. You know, it's a good God, a false God, or that, based on your heart. You know, right? Because there are XRP guys out there, this FTX guy, he was.
Right. So in that, there was FTX and that guy was ripping everybody off. Right. And then there's XRP, which is prided themselves in being, having integrity, right? Banks are using XRP. Why? Because it's quick and it's fast and it's accurate, right? And it's considered a utility, right? And if it's considered a utility, it shouldn't. There's a work component to a security, okay? And if there's work involved, so that's where mining came from. That's where crypto mining came from, where there's these algorithms that are running that are measuring the, take into account where the money's coming from and where it's going and all that. And so that, because of that, that's considered work. It's a loophole to allow it to be a security where people can trade it, right? But because it's a security, it falls under the governance of the SEC. Okay. And with XRP, then there's no mining with XRP. It's a utility, just as a faster way to do cross-border transfers of money rather than Western Union or a bank wire. Yeah, Wes.
So why is it, why would you mine?
Well, they don't mine it because they don't. No, only if they want to be considered a security. They don't want to be considered a security. Bitcoin's a security, right? And they did it so people could invest in it. It's considered an investment, right? Yeah, it's more secure than a lot of things, but it's not the most secure, right? So there's this big fight about the SEC sued Ripple because they sold a bunch of they released a bunch of XRP coin to make enough money to pay for their platform. And they they got a cease and desist from the SEC saying they were an unauthorized sale, and they came back and sued the SEC because they said that you don't govern us. We're not a security. We're not a stock. Okay, we are a utility. Okay, and so that's a big that lawsuit's been in place. There's a precedent because the SEC considered Ethereum a utility and not a security, and so Ethereum is used to buy and sell. You sell your cryptocurrency from one platform and you transfer it to Ethereum to buy cryptocurrency in another one. Okay, and that's how they did that. And so they're basically the same utilization between Ethereum and XRP. Mhm.
Process. XRP, not considered a security.
Well, it's the SEC saying Ethereum is good to do what they do, and they're not a currency, so they're taxed like a commodity. They're taxed a lot less, right? Like the highest is 15%. Okay, but they're saying that XRP, even though it's used the same way, is a security. And so that's what this lawsuit's all about. Okay, then once that lawsuit's settled, then everybody that's holding XRP, the value is going to go up, it's going to go way up. Okay, and it's going to be a primary means of commerce. Okay, but all this goes back to, when we study the law and we understand the real meaning of the words they're describing the process of the law, we are really understanding the language of God. Okay, and God wants us, by understanding this, to change the way we see things. Okay, and it's like so contrasting when you go to the way our language works, and we read the translation in English of the things say in the Bible. It's pretty harsh what they say to do, but when you explain, like, destroy everything, it's destroying the mindset. There's not, I'm like, oh, okay, that changes how this all plays out. It's how you interpret it. Okay, and when you have the mind of God and you understand it the way He wants us to understand it, it's much better thing, right? Same thing with the rules of money. Okay, the rules of finance. Okay, when you understand how it works, when you understand that we have to do is we have to offer something that's of value to somebody who wants it, and we have to find who they are, and we show them how to get it. It's worth something to us. Okay, now we have something of value. What do we do with it? How do we use it? When I sit down with people and I see where they're spending their money, it doesn't matter what they say, what comes out of their mouth. What I see is the reality. What I see when I look at people, how they spend their money, it tells me what their priority is. Okay, and it's
Mostly food, huh?
I know a lot of people spend a lot of money on food. Eating out, they spend a lot. So interesting. I had a guy who's a fireman. He was a fireman, and he was high level in the fire department. He made $10,000 a year as a fireman. $10,000 a month as a fireman. His wife was a nurse. She made $4,700 a month, and they had nothing saved. And so we started doing their finances. That guy ate every meal out.
Oh, eating out.
He ate out every meal, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And I'm like, dude, is the food that much better? But then I started talking to him. He got his wife from Cuba. Oh, she knew how to cook, but she hadn't been home in over 20 years. Mama wasn't happy. He was a chatterbox, man. He was a social butterfly, right? And so the two reasons that he was going out to eat, because he needed that social interaction. All right. And his wife didn't talk very much. I would tease him. I'm like, you know how lucky you are? Right? I can't, I haven't been able to find a woman that doesn't talk. Well, the reason Mama wasn't talking because Mama wasn't happy. And when Mama's not happy, Mama doesn't cook. You get that? My wife, had been around for a while, right? Very, she knew that once they had a kid who was a senior in high school. Because when that kid graduates high school, she's not going to be around very much longer. Right? She wasn't happy. Okay. And maybe she wasn't happy because she didn't get to go home. Maybe she wasn't happy because he talked to everybody but her. Okay, whatever, right? But in the finances told me something's wrong. Okay, because what you do with your money, okay, so if that guy cared about his family, okay, what do you think he'd be doing with his money? Right. But when somebody doesn't care about their family, what do they do? Right. Right. Okay. I'm aggressively out there looking for people that have families. Now, okay, because those people care about what they do with their money. I had to learn a whole different way to talk to young single people. I talked to them about the personal banking strategy, right? I'd heard about it, right? And my son, my 31-year-old son, he's now 32, called me up and goes, Dad, I want to do one of those personal banking strategies. And what it is an index universal life. He has a $250,000 index universal life. His target premium is $168.13 a month. But he can max fund it to $1,066 a month. That is $12,750 a year. It's twice as much as a Roth IRA, but it's taxed the same. Okay. But he doesn't have to wait until he's 67 to take that money out and not pay tax. He can take that money out. So he accumulates. He's an HVAC tech. All right. In the summertime, he makes more money than he can spend. Okay, so he gets a budget. And he budgets everything he does. He likes to do that medieval fighting stuff. So he goes, he budgets for the cost of going and doing that, eating for that day and driving there for that day, whatever the entry fee to whatever is the event, right? But anything he makes above and beyond the budget, he socks into his policy. Okay, he's really handy. He used to do home remodeling in San Diego. He used to do maritime construction in Pensacola, Florida, and then now he does electrical and HVAC. So if he sees real estate now, and his timing is like perfect right now, right? If he sees a property that he can scoop up, somebody's getting divorced or they're in foreclosure, whatever, they got laid off or whatever, he can borrow from the policy to pay the closing costs and down payment, fix that property up, flip it, put the money back into his policy and look for another property. Be in your own bank. Be in your own bank, right? And there's nobody nobody else can borrow against his assets in his policy, like what happened with the FTX and was going on with Silicon Valley Bank, right? None of that's going to happen. Okay, so these are all, and this is just what do you guys say? This is just an attribute of doing it right. Okay, if it wasn't for this strategy, he probably would never have a budget. He probably wouldn't bother budgeting. Okay, if you budget, even like when somebody doesn't know what they spend, they don't know where their money goes. I'm like, okay, tell you what, just this month, write down everything you spend, and don't try to curb your normal. If you buy a soda, right? Yeah, just write everything down, and then you can see where it's going. Okay, and then you can determine how you want to change your habits, right? Just see what you do. You do the same thing with your time. Figure what you do with your time. Where's it going? How did it all evaporate? You know, all of a sudden, oh, I didn't get to the office as early yesterday as I usually do, right? And how that affects you, right? And all that. So, you know, your time and your money, all of that, you know, be accountable, be aware of, okay? You know, when it comes to like what I'm learning about this whole spiritual thing, right? The more we know about the do's and don'ts, the more we know about the law, the more we know about the process, the more we get into the mind of God, which is a pretty detailed, he sounds pretty detail oriented, doesn't he? He sounds like he's, you know, keeps account of everything.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So the more order we're in, the closer we are to who? Right. And that's what I've been trying to get across. Is that making sense? Okay. Was this a good class today?
It was dark upon the sea. I was listening about that.
Well, looking at this again, right? Looking at this, this is what I sent to Tim, right? When I was doing venture capital, they taught us this. The minimum investment was $10,000, okay? But it was venture capital. This is non-securities. This is a startup business for startup money for businesses, okay? So we had to make sure that we weren't taking some little old lady's last $10,000, okay? So they had to have their finances structured in this way, okay? So the 50% of your money had to be in something safe. So this is a government bonds or debt, you know, bonds and debt. That's what that is. Money markets, bank accounts, CDs, notes, debt instruments, bills, bankers, etc. Those are CDs, right? Certificates of deposit. Okay. Then there cash and cash equivalents. There's other things of whole life insurance is considered gold, silver, precious metals. Those fall in this category. Okay. That's the odds of you losing your money are very slim in these type of investments. But in 2000, September 11th and in 2008, blue chip stocks was another thing. Everything went down. Blue chip stocks are down. Everything was down except mortgage-backed securities in 2001, right? And that's why China and Saudi Arabia, they all invested. They went to Fannie and Freddie, and they said, "Hey, we want to buy all your assets," which were mortgage notes. So we don't have enough assets for all your money. And so we'll get more assets. So that's when they came up with all these crazy loans. No income, no asset verification loans, the option arms, the high loan to value loans. That's when they came up with those. Okay. And then those entities, they bundled them up, sold them in the stock market. So they bought them on the stock market. Then they sold them to pension funds and retirement accounts, right? And they got their money, but then when those mortgages failed, it hurt those pension funds. They were, you know, unintended. It was unintended. Okay. So the next is real estate. Middle, the 40% show your income can be in real estate, equity, you know, with mutual funds, large and small cap stocks, high income bonds. Another category here is variable universal life insurance and variable annuities. Okay, basically your money's in the market. Okay, and that's considered moderate. Okay, then there's the high risk. That's going to be, this is options, futures, collectibles, Forex, which is currency trading, and oil and gas, commodities, and then, right. And then another one is going to be even on top, so that only 10% of your portfolio should be toward these high risk stuff, right? Venture capital is part of that. Okay. And another one, then the top, only 5%. The experts in crypto say that you only should have 5% of your total portfolio in cryptocurrency. Now, let's say you have an oil well and you hit a gusher, right? And you're making crazy money, right, from the oil well. Okay, so that top of your pyramid is a big bubble, right? They want you to, they recommend that you reallocate to this model. You take half of your earnings and you put it in the something secure. May not grow a lot, but it ain't going nowhere, right? And then 40% into the moderate, could be real estate, could be, in the stock market, whatever, and then only 10% back into the oil well, right? Back into the high. So that's how, so that's reallocation, reallocating your assets. That's what that is. That's what financial advisors do. Okay. So that's fund managers. That's what they do. Okay. So that's how that works. Now, let me show you something else. Now, this is something, this is a graph. Here's my graph. Here's my graph right there. This shows this is a back up. This is a graph from 2000 to 2012 of a variable universal life where the sub accounts, they're mutual funds inside an insurance contract, and you're exposed to the market, versus an index universal life, which came out in about 2000, where your money's not in the market. It's actually in the general fund of the insurance company, but they give you whatever index they're following. Could be the S&P 500, or it could be the Russell 2000, whatever it is. They have, this one had a floor of 0%. This was Western Reserve Life, and I used to sell a lot of Western Reserve Life. Okay, and they had a cap at 12%. Okay, so the market did 20, you're not going to get that, but that's how they pay for the floor. Okay, so comparing these two, the index universal life for the first 2 years, 2000, 2002, didn't do anything. But the variable universal life went down negative 23.37%. But we would tell them, when you use dollar cost averaging, when the market's going down, you're buying it on sale. So if you put $100 in every month and the market's going down, your $100 is buying more shares. Okay. But when the market comes back up, oh, your money comes, those shares, you get those shares inflate. Okay. So when you look at the index fund, who didn't go down past zero, starting from zero up to 2007, was up 47.72%, where the variable was up 2.16%. So it was not negative anymore. Okay. And then 2008 hit. Okay. Well, because of the floor of the index universal life, it stayed at 47.72%. But when the market came back, and then the variable, which was in the market, was down negative 36.61%. And then when the market came back, all right, in 2012, right, the index was up 114.49%, and the variable was up 0.41%. So I'm like, okay, I'm like, okay, that looks pretty good. But let's look at dollar cost averaging. So I did the math and worked it out, dollar cost averaging. Okay, comparing apples to apples, they were still up 36% more with the index universal life, with the floor, doing dollar cost averaging, than you were with the variable being totally exposed to the market. So since 2012, the market has doubled. We are not down to where the market was in 2012 yet. Okay. Let's look at the market. We saw what it was, right? The Dow. We saw that. What's the market? What was the right? Dow in 2012. Dow average. Okay. So the in 2012. Huh? This one here? Full chart. Okay, this is this year, 2023. Let's see what it looks like back. Yeah, the floor was in 2012. 12,900, significantly less, right? Okay, so can you see the advantage of the index versus the variable? Okay, so that's, see, who's teaching anybody this? Nobody, right? If you don't know, you ever heard it said, if you know better, you do better? Does that make sense? Amen. There you go. Right. Okay. So, oh no, did I record this? Let's see. I did. Yes. Tim, this is for you. All right, man. Have a great day. Well, anybody want to have any more discussion, or do you want to pray us out? Okay.
Father, we thank you that you're teaching us in everything. And thank you, word, principles, and truth. These are the God thoughts of our Lord, the fullness of it. Know the fullness is all the abundance that we have here. And what needs that these principles are right. Most of the world and data throughout the red, you're in the world, but not all of them. How it works. Thank you for this lesson today, Father. Let us apply it, even in a small or large way, to make the change necessary so we can dominate here. God's word. Thank you for this lesson today. That we can work today. South, West, Alex, and all of our brothers, best apostles, as now the that we manifest. We must understand how it works on this side of you. So first, the natural wind is first. Thank you, Father.
This is really amazing how what happened is